the sitting and stepping on the chair. Some people are going to be like, God, I wish that was me.
All right, well, welcome back to the INP, the Ichi podcast. My name is NW Epic, and I'm joined by my co-host Nan Mana, where we talk about anime, gaming, manga, and all sorts of other nerd culture that comes into our queue. Real quick, before we get into this podcast for today, I just want to highlight at the very beginning, we're going to do spoilers. I didn't speak to my co-host about this, but I think it's much easier to do a discussion review like this with spoilers. I mean, yeah, with spoilers, because much easier to anticipate, how to navigate around talking about specific things if you're writing and you have a lot of time. We're kind of just doing this off the cuff after having watched these two movies, like one yesterday, and then when did we watch Mario? Like Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, we watched it Wednesday. So again, this is your warning now. Full spoilers for both the Super Mario Brothers movie and Suzume. If you don't want to hear those, click off. Come back later after you watched them. Whatever you need to do. But yeah, with that said, we watched the Super Mario Brothers movie and Suzume. And I have different feelings for both movies. I think both are definitely positive. Definitely in the case of Suzume, very positive. Super Mario Brothers, very positive too, but it's sort of in a different way. I guess for a high level, how do you feel about both of those movies after watching both in the theater?
I really like Suzume. While Mario was pretty... Man, I got nothing to say about it. It's very unimpressive for me.
He's like, what is this? What is this? Well, we'll unpack that here really quick. And I think it'd be best to talk about Mario just because it's the lesser fresh of the two on our head since we just saw Suzume yesterday. So with Mario, right? First, I guess, animated Mario project in a long, long time. I guess it's the first. I'm trying to think, and I probably should have did proper research before we hopped on this podcast. But I know there's that old Mario anime that was just recently uncovered by the guys over at. They used to be called Femboy something, but they have a new name now. But there is that Mario anime, and then of course, obviously, the United States Super Mario Brothers Super Show and all of those various incarnations. But I feel like this is the first animated Mario thing in a while, and the first attempt at bringing Mario back to the big screen after the Super Mario Brothers movie in the 80s. And this was a task conjoined by the legendary Miyamoto alongside Illumination. For all those who may or may not know, Illumination is the studio behind the Minions, How the Grinch, well, the newest 3D iteration of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, a lot of the Dr. Seuss 3D movies that you may have seen in recent time are from Illumination. And I think one thing going into we heard the initial announcement, like 3-4 years ago when they first announced this thing, I saw Illumination and I got a little concerned because Illumination is not bad. So I think to just put sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a Surgeon General's warning, but just to highlight it. I think, as an older person that consumes, animated media, and a lot of that animated media targeted towards, a younger demographic, it's very easy to criticize that sort of content because you're looking at it from the lens of, obviously an older person, somebody who's absorbed a lot more content, somebody who's looking for something a little different in their animated content. When, in actuality, these movies are great for families. They're great for smaller children. I know it was fun for me, at the very least, when we went on Wednesday just to see the little kids laughing at, whatever popped up on the screen. Like, obviously, we're just sitting there a little dead face. There's a few times we chuckled, but just hearing the kids enjoying themselves, I think that's really all you can ask with an animated feature that's geared towards them. So I mean, I'm saying that up front because I don't want to seem like some man child that's just nitpicking a child's movie. But anyways, in at least with the case of Illumination, I mean, their content is very cookie cutter. Like, they don't really do anything that's wild. They don't do anything outside of the box. Like they're very traditional with their content. And they sort of recycle sort of the same store side. What's the word I'm looking for? They recycle the same sort of content, so humor, definitely character designs, which we'll get into with Mario. Their art direction is pretty much the same for any movie that they put out. Um, and so I was very concerned. But then, obviously Mario, or excuse me, Shigeru Miyamoto, is, overseeing the movie. Obviously, Nintendo has a very, very strong iron grip on their property. So I sort of, relaxed a little bit. I was like, okay, this thing at most will be decently fun, but it won't be bad. It won't be crazy like the original 80s live action adaptation. Which may be a bad thing, but again, we'll talk about that. So I guess for you, what were your expectations going into that movie? Before we saw it, like, did you have high expectations? Were you excited? Were you just morbidly curious? Like, what was going through your head? I guess with the studio and sort of this new Mario project.
Well, I was expecting a more adventure, I would say. I don't know what specifically comes to mind when I say that, but I would say that movie's definitely aimed at kids. I don't know about family, since usually from family animated features I would expect a little bit of, I don't know, content for the adults that you probably won't get as a kid, or more nostalgia references. But I guess since it's Nintendo, I don't think they would allow such a thing
Well, I would
for like
say
adults.
though, I would say, not to cut you off, but when you mentioned the nostalgia thing, there was a lot of nostalgia in there, especially for an older demographic. Because one thing I found interesting is that they targeted sort of that original Super Mario Brothers crowd, not like your current, like maybe, I don't know, let's not say Zoomer, not Zoomer. That's not the right demographic. Let's say millennial. Maybe not your millennial, but your kid that grew up with a Nintendo Entertainment System in the 80s, because I mean they started off with the original, like, sort of homage to the Super Mario Super Show cartoon with the little ad that Mario and Luigi put out. The music was very much inspired, and I'm thinking this is the correct period, but it's definitely the 80s, if not the 80s, the early 90s. They had I Need a Hero, and then they had Take On Me by Aha on there, which really surprised me in that one scene where the original scene where they were traveling on the cart with that security Kong. So there's catches to it. I don't know if it was necessarily for our age demographic, but there was a little nostalgia in there, just a little bit.
I mean, there are
Speak.
some like nostalgia things, like the Donkey Kong fight with the barrels and everything. Like,
Yes.
but I've none of those were more like cameos and references rather than like being part of the plot or something.
Sure. And I mean, I definitely agree with that point. I mean, it's not, but I think that's part of the appeal too, because honestly, the story is very light. It's not really a story. It's more of a, I guess, we're on this journey sort of thing. And I think really what the movie is hedging on is more of those fan service moments rather than, like, good strong story. And I think again that plays into sort of Illumination's wheelhouse. You don't necessarily go and watch an Illumination movie for, good story, or, something to really cling on to, or actual meat. It's a lot of fluff. It's a lot of fluff to appeal to the kids, and then, you throw in all of this fan service that, might make a older person, like, either giggle occasionally or just be like, "Hey, I know that," Like, again, when I heard "Take on Me," I was like, "Why is this song in this movie?" I was like, "That's kind of funny."
Why are any of those
And
songs in that movie?
I will say it was kind of strange to have those, like, very licensed songs in the movie and not really take advantage of the full catalog of Mario music that they could have. Like, they did in a few instances, and some of the remixes, at least for, like, how they were mixed in the movie, they just sounded not as great as I was expecting them to sound, if I can be honest. But I'm like, you have this whole library from Koji Kondo to play with, and instead of playing with that, you put in these 80 songs, which again, that's fine. That appeals to, that demographic, I think, a lot more than just your gamer nerd, right? But I don't know, some of the decisions were a little weird. But yeah, go ahead. I mean, tell me. Let me see. As far as the like, I guess animation and art direction, how did you feel about the movie in that aspect?
I mean, it's fine. It's Illumination, so that if you've seen the others movies, then it's just it's got that look.
Yes. I think you put it succinctly. I would say it's probably their best feature I've ever seen from them. Not for writing per se, but at least for like art direction and animation wise. Like obviously they pulled out the stops because this is a big collaboration for them. As we've seen from all of the news articles and at the records that this movie is breaking. It looked good. I remember telling you when we left the theater that it definitely had that illumination face. Like again, another product of Illumination, where anything that wasn't directly tied to Mario or Nintendo properties, it just looked like another Illumination OC. But at the same time, even the Mario characters really just looked like an Illumination OC with a Super Mario Brothers DLC skin pack put on top of them. I really did like the locales though. Like I liked what the Mushroom Kingdom looked like. I liked what all the various sort of I guess Mario biomes. Your tundras and your creepy mansion and your volcano, the Rainbow Road. All those looked pretty good, and I think special mention needs to be made for the scenes in particular with Luigi when he's in the location with the dry bones and stuff. That was an homage to Luigi's Mansion.
I didn't
Those were
hear any
really
Luigi's Mansion music though.
uh, and
That was
again
disappointing.
disappointing because the atmosphere was just there. Like they really nailed that. I will say that for a fact. Like I think that was my favorite part of the movie was when Luigi is in that location and he's being chased by the dry bones and just his interaction with the dry bones. And when he gets into the mansion and he's like, phew, and then the Shy Guys are just there, like I was like, okay, you all nailed it with the characters that you used, the pacing of that entire scene. That was perfect. That was but I don't know. I don't want to be too negative on
I
the
didn't see
movie.
any
But
boos. There were no boos
yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, they actually I think the only boo that they had
It was at
was
the wedding.
King Boo, and that was at the towards the end in the wedding. Yeah, which I found I like the little homage they threw in there for Super Mario 64 because all of the sort of I guess big boss monsters that appeared for the wedding were the main mini bosses for Super Mario 64 because you had King Bomb in that iteration. You had that version of the big you had PD in there. I don't know if PD Piranha was in there. I don't remember. Like that aspect of it. But let's talk about some positive stuff before we talk about the voice cast because I'm gonna rip that to shreds. But let's talk about the some positive stuff. What's some stuff that you liked about it? Because you seem very like, it was okay. But was there anything that you liked?
Mm, man,
You need
no.
to leave that silence in. By the way, don't edit the silence out. I want you to leave that in. That's the perfect answer. uh, oh, that's funny. But seriously, nothing that was really like I like this.
Mm, no.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll be the voice of positivity for this movie. I I sort of liked the little, the adventure sort of progression of it. I liked Princess Peach's portrayal. She wasn't just damsel in distress; like she was very active. There was a backstory. And even in the moments where she was sort of was the damsel, she wasn't the damsel. Like she was just kicking butt, taking names. She was like a real active main character and was, by all intents and purposes, more efficient and effective than Mario. Like I sort of like this characterization of, this is the start of Mario's journey. Like he's learning how to be, the protector of the Mushroom Kingdom and the Toads and such. And so I really liked that aspect. I liked how they did Luigi, his progression in the story. Like, well, let me rephrase that. I wish we would have gotten more Luigi because technically he was the damsel in distress, which is sort of ironic and funny and makes sense. But I do like his progression, and I like sort of the subplot of this, or the sub theme, which was of brotherly love and connection, and how Mario was always there for him. And at the very end, when Mario's about to get eviscerated. He steps up and he's like, as long as my brother's with me, we can do anything. I mean, yes, it's cheesy and kiddie, but it was good. And I'll special mention on that particular scene. We actually got some tokusatsu in this movie at the end, where they do common kick on Bowser at the end. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't pop off because again, I'm this grown adult in here watching Super Mario Brothers with all these kids, but I was like, let's go with when they do the common kick. I'm like, yes, this is why I paid $10 for this movie. I really liked Bowser in the movie as well. Definitely funny. He gave me the most chuckles out of any character in the movie, outside of maybe Toad. I did like the Luma to a degree. I felt like there's a complex feeling in me because a part of me was like, this is funny, but then also a part of me like, this is cringe, like this is a little forced. But then I'm also thinking like, I only feel like this is forced because I think this is a kids movie. I don't know, the whole like, yes, accept death sort of angle. It was pretty funny. I think that was aimed at adults to a degree. Like I don't think a kid really would understand that, but like the adults in the theater definitely are like, oh my goodness, what's going on? What is this star thing? I thought that was funny. And yeah, again, I think the art direction for the locales, at least in the Mushroom Kingdom, were really good. I really liked, it didn't feel like Illumination with the Super Mario Brothers DLC skin. It felt like a real continuation of that world. But I don't know, it was a fun movie. It was a pretty fun movie. I wouldn't go watch it again. I would watch the 1980s movie again. I'd watch this movie with my kids, but I wouldn't just have a hankering to be like, let's watch the Super Mario Brothers animated, 3D animated movie by Illumination again. But yeah, I think, if you don't really have too much to say about this movie, there's only one other thing we really need to talk about,
The voice
and
actors.
the voice actors. So, before I do my long ramble on it, and I'm going to keep it short, what was your impression after coming out of the movie? Yes, we had our reservations, loud complaining about, some some casting choices, but tell me how you felt after watching the movie.
They really had to throw in the Seth Rogen laugh at least twice for DK. I'm like, did you really have to do this? They did not have to do this. And I think Jack Black did pretty well at Bowser, but I feel like those musical numbers, they put it in there because he's Jack Black and not because it provides any sort of content to the movie.
Fair. That's fair. But yeah, go ahead. Tell me about Chris Pratt. Because we got to talk about Chris Pratt. Tell me your feeling about him.
I mean, I understand why they picked him because there's no way. Well, like the same goes for Toad. There's no way they're going to go through a whole movie with the accent and closer to their in-game voices. Imagine Toad just talking like that the entire movie.
I fear no one. Yeah, after watching the movie, I understand not casting Charles Martinet for the entire thing because that would have tested limits of patience with Mario's voice. I guess to allow myself to transition to talk about the voices, they weren't that bad. All right.
Yeah, they did fine.
They did fine. I still hold the point though that if it's an animated feature, it does not. You shouldn't be casting movie stars because one, like nobody cares about that movie star in there. I couldn't tell who Chris Pratt was. I didn't know that, Keenan was playing Toad, really. I didn't hear the voice at all. I'll be honest, I don't even really remember who Seth Rogen is. So I had no attachment to the laugh. Like I went back and I asked my wife, I was like, I don't really know Seth Rogen like that. I was telling her about the movie and I was just like, she told me about some movie that he was in. I don't remember, but I mean, I know the name. I know he's a popular actor, but again, that's the thing. He's a popular like actor. He's not a voice actor. And he even said as much in an interview. He's like, don't expect me to do voices because I don't do voices. And I mean, that's fine. I don't know why you would get mad at him for that because that's the truth. He's not a voice actor. He's an actor. And I think you amplify your animated movie if you actually get voice actors who make, a compelling, who what's the word I'm looking for? Exemplify those characters even more. and we'll talk a little bit more about that nuance when we get to Suzume. But I mean, they did fine, but I think the movie would be better with actual voice actors. Now, yes, Jack Black did a fantastic job. Like, he was sort of indistinguishable. There were a few moments, obviously, where you could tell that it was Jack Black. I mean, outside of the singing bits, but like, he actually was playing a role. He was trying to be this version, this incarnation of Bowser.
Well, he's done voice
Um,
acting before, like Kung Fu
it-
Panda.
yeah. So like, he's not, it's not new to him. So like, that's not a bad pick to me. But like, Chris Pratt was fine as Mario. He did a good job. It didn't. I guess it didn't sound like just Chris Pratt. I don't really know what just Chris Pratt sounds like, because I'll be honest, I haven't even watched the Guardian of the Galaxy movies. I know, throw stones and sticks at me. But and I don't know what else he's popular for. I'm sure he's popular for some other stuff as well. But he was fine. Everybody was fine. I just really felt like they should have invested in actual voice actors who could have propelled these characters even more in this movie and made it a little bit more enjoyable, instead of like you said, like, I guess the Seth Rogen laugh. Like, the characters are playing, the characters are just shells for these famous actors, rather than, the voice actors amplifying the characters. I guess that's the best way to put it. But it's fine. It's a kids movie.
I
They
mean,
all did fine.
the Seth Rogen laugh was funny. They just tossed it in there because for no reason.
But again, I didn't even recognize it.
No,
You know,
once you hear it, you know.
well, that's the thing. I don't know Seth Rogen like that. So for me, it was just like the guy doing a laugh for Donkey Kong. I mean, I remember the laugh now in retrospect, but I didn't know that that was an actual thing for him. The Seth
They've made
Rogen laugh.
entire remixes around his laugh.
Interesting. I have not explored that part of the internet. But yeah, not to stay too much longer on Super Mario Brothers. This man he sent the. I'll watch it later. I'll watch it later. Not to stay too much longer on Super Mario Brothers. I think it's a good kid movie. All right, family movie. Shout out to Bowser though. Bowser was the best, from art direction to animation to the voice actor to the plot. Bowser stole that movie.
I wish they didn't.
Oh yes,
They didn't have his airships. I was waiting for the airships. There were no airships.
they can only fit so much into this little.
They just gave him a
version.
giant like rock platform.
I mean, that's his main. That's from the original, like Paper Mario and what's
I know,
it
but they
called?
couldn't
Super
like,
Mario
put
64.
other things.
Sure, but say that for the sequel. It'll be in the sequel. Make the sequel. Leave it for the sequel so it can be bigger
It better be a
and
Galaxy
grander.
sequel.
I mean, I feel like that's
have
what they were sort
Rosalina.
of. Yeah, I feel like that's what they were hinting at with the Luma just kind of randomly being in there. So and I could definitely see Rosalina herself sort of embodying sort of a similar like energy as that Luna for this interpretation of their characters. But it'd be fun to see Super Mario Galaxy animated. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, I guess real quick to touch on some other things too. I do like some of the implementations from other Mario series. I mean, in particular, the Mario Kart stuff. I thought that was really well integrated into the plot as well. The race scene with the Kongs and the Koopa Army was really good. I think that was one of the other best parts of the movie as well. Really good pacing. Really good energy with it. I like the conclusion, the climax to that scene as well. So everything was pretty cool. But yeah, that was Super Mario Brothers movie. I think it's as an adult, maybe a 6. As just somebody casually enjoying it, a 7. I think it's a 7. Inoffensive, does some things good, does some things bad, but a good movie. All right, now it's time for the the main movie we want to talk about, Suzume. So
You gotta
yeah,
put the accent on the last syllable.
Suzume,
Man, Suzume.
Suzume.
It's like
The last,
when people say Naruto. That's just weird.
I'll say Naruto if I want to. Naruto. I mean, you gotta understand, it's the English. It's the English that makes you put that hard syllable at the end. But I will try my best to say these names correctly. Suzume. I guess this is the last and the current Shinkai movie trilogy. Has that been said in an interview or something like that, or is that just more of a?
I haven't seen any official sources on that, but 3 trilogy for disaster themes. Then like the first one was, I don't know if you can hear that as a plane just flying by.
Yeah, I heard it. Kind of, but but yeah.
But what was I saying?
You were talking about the trilogy aspect of it. They're all disaster movies to a degree.
Yeah, major spoilers by the way. I don't know. The first one was about meteor strike. The second one was flooding, rain. This one's obviously about earthquakes.
Yeah, which I guess it didn't really register for me until this third movie that all of them had that sort of natural disaster undertone of just travesty related to it. And I guess this one is sort of gosh, English is hard. It's related to the 2011 earthquakes, I imagine. That's probably
Yeah, the Tohoku earthquakes and
yeah.
tsunami in March 11th, 2011.
So definitely something that if you're just a casual observer, you don't pay attention to, but when you really get into the meat of it, there's actually there's a lot of different running parts to the movie. Just to get my initial thought out of the way, like that was a great movie. That was a fantastic movie.
Yep.
I honestly I saw that it was coming out. I like the character design. I like Shinkai's recent character designs. I mean, of course, they feel. I can't talk about Illumination and not talk about the fact that the art direction for Shinkai's stuff is the same across all of his movies as well. But I mean, you can't beat that beauty once you've figured it out. I mean, squeeze it. But everything just worked together. Everything from the soundtrack to the animation to the art direction to the plot itself. I again didn't go to this movie. I kind of forgot it was coming out. Randomly saw it. I was like, yeah, let's go see it. So I didn't have like huge expectations for it. And I think that really helped as well. Like I just became invested. Like throughout the Mario movie, we kind of make little side comments or say something too, but like
The
for
only
the whole
comments
two
I made
hours.
for Mario was like, what the hell?
Yeah. But for like the entirety of Suzume, we just sort of were just glued. We were just invested. Like it was just an awesome movie. So I guess you start us off with this movie, like on sort of what you want to touch on as we start to unravel sort of how we feel and how the movie performed and such in that way.
Well, I do. Yeah, I sorted my points into what I liked, what I thought was weird, and some other just miscellaneous details.
Mhm.
Well, I definitely liked how we got an early start in the adventure, or like the driving mechanic, like closing the gates and stuff, and that keeps the viewer engaged for like throughout the whole movie about why they're continuously moving. But of course, the art, animation is always excellent from comics away films.
Mm-hmm.
The voice acting's really nice. There's a little bit of weird 3D sometimes, and
that's interesting. I'm gonna hop in on that point. Because I read a review after the fact after we watched it, and I'll be honest, like the 3D CGI didn't bother me at all, and maybe that's because I watch a lot of trash and I play a lot of trash too, and so I've seen much, much worse. But I saw a point was that some of the 3D CGI didn't mesh well with the rest of the movie, and honestly, it didn't bother me at all. I think the only time that I visibly like saw 3D CGI and was like, "This is 3D CGI," was a scene when it was Suzume, Serizawa, and the aunt, I forget her name, Tamaki,
Tamaki, yeah.
Tamaki, Tamaki, yeah. And they were driving in his car, and they only did this once, but they did 3D models and such for them. And that stuck out like a sore thumb. But other than that, like I thought like all of the parts with like, the worm and the gate and such where it was used in those instances, I thought it meshed pretty well. Was it a little, I guess, iffy or off to you in those types of scenes?
It was noticeable. But I didn't think it was bad.
Okay.
Like I thought it was perfectly appropriate for an animated movie. Like I know some of my other friends, they watch it and they notice some kind of weird interpolation thing. When there's definitely some interpolation going on. Like and probably
explain for our viewers at home interpolation and your co-host.
Like instead of they're using like automatic tweening, animation tweening.
Mm,
where they automatically shift from frame to frame instead of like doing it by hand.
gotcha.
So yeah, there were some scenes where it looked like they were projecting 2D art onto 3D objects and trying to shift it that way, which it's pretty hard to get right depending on the environment. But I didn't think it was detrimental in any way.
Yeah, I think
It
it
was
was
just
fine.
noticeable sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah,
Well,
sorry, continue.
yeah, I'll go into the things I thought were weird. The subs translations were kind of weird. Like I can hear what the character's speaking, but the subs don't match, so it distracts me for a minute to like, what did they actually just say?
Yeah. I thought it was I mean they're serviceable. Again, obviously you have to translate it to the audience that you're providing it to. So, I think it was fine for I had no problems with it. I did notice like there was a part where we both giggled, I think. And this was like early in the movie when she first met gosh, and my memory is horrible, but the other main character is Sota. All right, is it Sota? Sota?
Well,
Soda.
yeah,
Seta.
the main
Yeah.
guy, Sota.
Sota, yeah. Um, she's like looking around for him. She's like, "Ike man," like
Yeah,
hot guy. Where are you, hot guy? But they put like what
you
did
just
they
said,
put up
"Where
there?
are you?"
Yeah, where are you? Or like guy or something like that. And I was like, well, that's not right. And I think they even did that again because there was a scene where they went back to Tokyo to go to his flat, and they got the key from like his I guess that was a coworker, and they were like, "Ooh, tell the Iki man to come back, bring him
Yeah,
back," and they didn't like fully translate the fact that this hot guy, they just kind of said guy. So I see what you mean.
yeah, that's definitely the most noticeable part. But the rest
Yeah,
were serviceable.
yeah. Sorry.
Uh, no, that was my next point. Why do we like the Ikimen? There was no plot of why Suzume cares so much about Sota.
Mm,
Like other than he looks good.
I thought about that. I thought about that. Did you have a sort of theory on that, or are you more so just presenting that as
No,
a
there's no
question?
theory because there's no details on that.
he said he said there's no theory. Well, see, here's the thing, all right? Like you only have 2 hours in this movie. And you have to, I guess, because the thing is like they don't previously know each other. So you can't have some like pre-established like backstory of why they like each other. You sort of have to make them like each other within the course of this movie.
But they didn't.
And
That's the thing. Like when she's like
I
running toward the gates, like, oh, I'm gonna go get the person. I'm like, why? I understand like going to get him back, but like, oh, I love him, but I don't know why you do.
So there's two reasons. There's two reasons I can give you. One is Stockholm syndrome. That girl had been through a lot, and so she has shocked herself into loving this hot guy who she already thought was extremely attractive. The second one, and I forget the medical term for this, but it's actually appeared in another anime, which I think is funny. What's the one? It's the name of the anime. It's the anime that has the big guy
What?
who My Love Story.
Oh, yeah.
My Love Story. Have you seen My Love Story or read it?
I know what it's about.
Okay.
I think
Well,
I
there's a
showed you the
particular
Thanos version.
you may have. Um, you may you may not have thinking about which is a perfect fit. Um, in that anime, there's a particular episode where the girls get caught in like a building fire, and I forget what his name is. I feel like it's like something along the lines of Tetsuo or something. I forget what his name is, but the main character, he's a burly guy. He goes in and he basically runs through the flames and he grabs all the girls and makes sure they're safe. And he obviously has a very distinctive face. That's the main plot of the story. And one of the girls looks at him and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And she starts to blush, you know. And then she's like, no, I have not fallen for this guy. This is just there's a medical term for it, but it's basically like when you're in a traumatic situation.
Suspension bridge effect.
Yes, the suspension bridge effect, and that could be it too. But I think honestly, with all of the other plot that was going on, they needed a reasonable way to connect these two. And I'm making sort of a joke here, but I do think I mean, to a degree, love can happen slowly or it can happen very fast. Personally speaking, you never really realize how quickly you can become attracted to somebody else or enjoy somebody else's company until you start spending
Uh,
more time with them. I mean,
oh no, she literally said like I can't imagine a world without them. But then she
yes,
would
now
say
it's
she would turn into the Keystone. I was like, then what's the point, man?
now I agree 100%. I agree. It's too fast. I think if they had established a reasonable amount of time, at least with even in the journey aspect, like let's say if it was like a month
They
or
had the
so, that
time.
would
They just didn't do it.
that yeah, it was like because this movie happened like maybe in the span of a few days, if that, or a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely over the top. I think if they would have redid the story, maybe established like a background element where they had more history together. But I think too that would take away from the whole concept of like she's kind of foisted into this to a degree. Like she's sort of like she had no idea that this world existed, and then this guy came, and then like now she's on this whole mythical adventure. So
Even
it's a
Soda
balancing
doesn't
act.
have much background of anything. Like all we know is his family does this. Yeah, and that's it.
Leave it for the sequel, or leave it for the prequel manga. That honestly, I'm joking, but I would imagine maybe they have like a prequel manga for Sota or something to explore some of his background and stuff like that. I mean, he's really just what's the word I'm looking for? A plot. We'll just say a plot convenience, right? He's there to assist the main antagonist. He's there to establish the plot, set the protagonist on their journey, and then give the protagonist motivation. He's not really his own character in a sense, right? Like he's really there to start and assist the protagonist if you look at it from that lens, because this story, and I mean honestly I think that's fine because we didn't really need to focus on him, because really the story focuses around Suzume and her journey. Like if you wanted to make an allegory to real life, really what that movie is trying to show is like how a young girl faces the challenges of moving on from the 2011 earthquake, and how she's handling the sadness of losing her mother, losing her home, the strained relationship that she has with her aunt. It's really, the story is really centered around her. Like if you were to take out all the supernatural bits, that's really what's going on here. The whole journey, running away thing. She actually, let's say all that supernatural stuff didn't exist. She really just ran away. Life, it just got to the point where all of those bottled up feelings really exploded, and like she had to go find herself again. And so Soda is not really that important in telling Suzume's story, and I mean, she is the titular character, so it makes sense to me. Would it be nice to have more backstory on him, though? Absolutely, because I think the world and the characters that they established for this movie, like even with just 2 hours, like we're invested. The reason why we're complaining that he didn't have a lot of backstory is because we want to know more about the characters in the world. So, I hear your point, and I agree with your point, because I was thinking that exact thing sort of when I left. I was like, who is this hot guy? Like, why are they so madly in love and they've only known each other for a few weeks or a week? Also, isn't she like middle school or is she high school?
High school.
Because
She's 16.
okay,
I
because
don't
that
think
bothered me for a
Soda
second.
had any reciprocated feelings. He's just cool. I think it felt one-sided.
Well, I think the intensity is one sided, right? Because I think it's supposed to mirror again a young girl with a tragic past who's found somebody that makes her feel whole again, right? And so
This
that also,
they don't
I
show
mean,
why
sure.
he makes her feel whole.
Well, I mean, again, it's that journey. He's always with her, like he's hot. Well, and that's very. There's,
Wow.
there's a word for that, but I mean, seriously though, like like I think it parallels real life really well. You don't really realize, how powerful somebody's just appearance or spending time with you can make you feel certain types of way. You don't realize just how invested or tied or how much in love or just you want somebody until you sort of get into that situation, and it can have damaging effects. Like I know we make fun of simp culture, but a lot of that is just tied to the fact that a lot of these people just sort of are looking for somebody to fulfill them. And I mean, for her, like she found somebody. Again, this is within the scope of 2 hours, so I am sort of, I guess doing work to make this point rather than the movie doing the work for me. But she found somebody that she could confide in, a partner, somebody she was on this grand adventure where she felt like there was purpose in her life again. Because that was a point in the movie too, when she was at the house with the girl, I think her name was Chica. She was basically saying she felt like there was purpose in my life again. She felt alive again. And who was the individual that brought that life back to her? It was Sota. It was Sota in this journey. It was somebody, and it was also somebody who, to a degree, shared her pain. Maybe didn't have the loss of family, but it was somebody who was actively working to prevent these casualties that had taken away, one of the most important people to her. And so I think that's sort of what Shinkai wants you to see in that. Again,
that's a good point. I didn't think of that. She wants to prevent earthquakes because of what happened to her.
Yeah. Again, I'm doing overwork. This is a 2-hour movie, so a lot of that is just interpretation. But I think that's
something
sort
I
of
overlooked. Yeah,
that's something you would look at.
Chica. Fun fact: the kanji for her name, Chica, is 1,000 fruit, and you know how they met, catching all those oranges.
That's cute. I like that a lot. Yeah. And actually, since we're talking about Chica right this second, I was thinking about it, and obviously before we started the podcast, we were talking about your streamer that's, going all over Japan on bike, and how he's had some great interactions with the locals and stuff like that. I really found that aspect of the movie interesting. It made me curious, about Japanese culture in general, and if obviously. This is just me speaking as an American. I almost feel like, Japanese people feel a lot more safer with, their own people than we sort of do. But just that whole aspect of this grand journey where, these people were, just opening their arms to him. Well, at least with like Chica, right? There was an establishment. She dropped all her fruit, and Suzume and Sota, caught the fruit, and then they, they're both girls of the same age, and obviously, Chica's like, wow, this girl is going through it. She's traveling by herself, and they become friends. But then there's the mama. I forget her name. I don't even know if they named her, but there's the mom who works at the bar who, takes her to Kobe and is driving. I really like those aspects of like just those interpersonal relationships and the different interactions with the people from, around Japan. I really like that. It really tied well into the adventure aspect. It really tied into this cohesive like community of individuals, even though they're thousands of kilometers apart, or maybe not thousands, but like hundreds of kilometers apart. Like there's bonds that are tying these people, and that also tied back into the whole theme of how they would close the gates. Remember the memories of these people as they existed in this spot, before it became desolate. And I really liked how all of those things sort of tied back into each other. I thought the side characters were very brilliant because every character really just felt human to me. No character felt like what's the word for like a stereotype, I guess, but it's not stereotype. It's something you see a lot in anime, like a particular type of character type. I can't think of the word.
Archetype?
Right now. Yes. Nobody felt like an archetype. They all felt like whole humans. And we can talk about it a little later, but Suzume in particular, she felt like a whole, strong female character, like person. Not even a character, like a person. She felt real, like her ups, her downs. Like she didn't feel like a shonen protagonist, like there's some realistic aspects outside of the whole I'm going to get the person I love, that extreme thing. But even then, like I explained why that works that way. So I really like the characterization. But sorry, you were going through your list. Keep going.
Okay. One downside that I guess compared to the other two films, like the music was good, but there weren't any bangers.
You're lying them.
Your Name and Weathering with You had some Rad Wimps bangers.
This is incorrect, though.
There's no Zens in there.
I have to tell you why you're incorrect. Okay. So, Serizawa, I vibed with him specifically because of his music choice.
Right? No, that's different. insert songs are different.
No, no, no,
I'm
no, no,
talking. I'm
no,
talking
no,
about
no.
soundtrack made by Radwimps.
We'll circle back around to this, but sure. I mean, I think honestly, the music for the most part served the story well. I don't think they needed to, go hard like they did for the other movies. I think what they did for this movie really served it well. Like when those pieces hit and when the music swelled, or when, in those times of peace, or in those times of, all the different parts of the movie, I think they worked well. I think, you don't want to overshadow those moments. I think they complemented them very well. And they were still
Right.
pretty good.
Yeah, the music was really good as is, but I can't help but think, what if they did make some bangers? What could
I mean,
what could have they made?
they're like is it called alt rock? I'm not really in that genre of music, but is that normally what they do? Is it alt rock? Is that what that's called?
I don't know if it's alt rock now. It's just J rock, modern J rock, I guess.
J rock. Okay. It could have been. I mean, at least for like maybe the opening or closing or something, or maybe even one of the insert songs. Maybe Tamaki's like, "Why are you listening to all this old stuff?" Takes his music player and then puts on a Rat Wimp original.
There was one cameo of From Your Name, that Itamori High School, where they're playing during the news scene when I think Daijin is walking across the suspension bridge.
Mm.
But I think that was the only cameo from any of the movies, since
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure this takes place in a separate timeline or universe.
could be, or it could be the same, and they just decided, we already did the cameo thing at least for characters once.
Weathering with You, the whole flooding was in 2021. I know Your Name, it was stated that the two main characters, they met again in 2022.
Interesting.
And Suzume takes place in 2023 in a timeline where the Tohoku earthquake happened, and I think COVID also happened.
Interesting. Now, is this from like pre-interviews or something like that?
I think
obviously, they don't talk about that.
I read online that was some like official Twitter space where Shinkai answered some questions and stuff.
Gotcha. That's interesting. I wonder if there's any plans to like do a connected, like, I don't even know how you would do that though. That's probably a stupid idea, but just like a sort of a connected universe sort of thing, whether that's like done in manga or, maybe a whole film itself that sort of culminates everything together.
This isn't Fate.
You mean like Fate? Maybe?
Nah.
Maybe.
No,
I don't know how I don't know how you would do that Fate style though. I don't know. That's probably a bad idea. But yeah. Before we move away from music, my man Serizawa, his music selection on point. In particular, there was one song I wanted to highlight. It was Kinka o Yamete, which basically translates to "Stop Fighting." That's by Maria Takeuchi, who many of you will probably know for Plastic Love, obviously, but she has a lot of great songs. But that one in particular, when I heard it, I was like, really? They're playing this? And I was wondering if it was like maybe an allusion to the fact that, obviously she's become a lot more popular recently with obviously the internet and city pop, and how Plastic Love just sort of blew up again, at least internationally. But I found myself humming along with the music. I was like, nobody else knows this song. I was like, Kinka o Yamete, Futari o Tomete, Watashi. I know that whole song. The exact. It's a good song. But yeah. I just wanted to make mention of that because I was like, whoa. It was similar to the what was it? The Take On Me by Aha in the Super Mario Brothers movie moment. I was just like, this song is in here? What are y'all doing? I like the 80s callback. I thought those were pretty cool. So anyways, let's keep it moving. What else did you want to focus on?
I noticed definitely a lot of magic and fantastical themes and concepts in this movie compared to the other two. This one had a lot of visible magic. Like, even there's the magic that only they can see with the gate and worm and everything. But then there's just a walking chair in public, and she flies off into the sky in Tokyo. So there's a lot of visible magic compared to the invisible magic in the other two films.
That's a good point. I don't remember Weathering You or Your Name as much, honestly, but it was sort of like this sort of hush, like nobody else really knows. It's just us that's noticing this. And which there's a big chunk of that with this movie as well. I think it just sort of escalates in certain scenes, like obviously when they get to Tokyo and she, like you said, she flies up, or the point towards the end where she hops through the door to get to the ever after. Yeah, it's, but I think it, again, it plays well into sort of the adventure aspect of it. Like, you, how do you really do an adventure without making it sort of, big and out there? Like, you're really sold like this is a cross country adventure. Like, we're running around, we're closing gates, we're chasing this cat. And it'd be really hard, or maybe you'd sort of ruin some stuff if you hit it. I think they did a good job of like addressing that in a sense, to a degree. Like, um, when you see the chair moving and stuff, like, I think that's realistically how people would react. They would just turn around, start taking pictures instead of like, checking to see if the government haven't. Oh, and that reminds me, that scene where Daijin is, all over the place, and people are taking pictures of it, and they're like, "Ooh, Daijin, Daijin, Daijin," and then they transition to the next part where Sota in the chair is starting to trend, and it's that freaking there's that picture of the like militarized autonomous robot.
Boston Dynamics, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that's funny. Okay, that's a great little I guess you wouldn't call that cameo, but joke. I think they balanced the visible magic well. They didn't let it get too crazy where like everybody's in on the action. It's still sort of in the background, but certain things are
Yeah, there's no
going on.
reason in this movie that they would have to hide any magic, because
Yeah.
that's just not a concern.
Yeah.
Compared to the first movie, Your Name, the magic was the whole like plot of the movie, like the body switching and then finding out what was really happening and all of that. Weathering with You, not kind of hiding it, kind of, but more or less, or mostly just running away from the authorities rather than hiding it. The actual magic part.
Yeah. And actually, now we're talking about magic. I want to get your opinion on this. Daijin and also Sa Daijin. How'd you feel about them? Because I know we were talking about the lack of sort of background and characterization for Sota. Well, not even characterization, just background. But we were, talking about Sota earlier. But I feel like the motivation and somewhat the twist for Daijin and Sa Daijin just weren't there for me. I think if anybody was egregious of kind of being half baked, it was the cat, and especially Sa Daijin, who comes in a little later. How do you feel about them?
I mean, I think they're all right. Like the realization of, oh, you were leading us to open doors instead of opening them yourself. Well, like, I guess I kind of saw that coming, but I don't
Sure,
know
but
why
like,
he had to turn Soda into a chair. I think it's just his way of playing with Suzume, like trying to get her to play with him, chasing
sure,
across the country.
but it's just weird though, because to a degree, I get it, right? Because like obviously Suzume didn't realize she picked up the keystone, and that Daijin was now set free from its position, and now it wanted to be a friend to Suzume. But like it never spoke, right? Like it never like explicitly stated what it wanted to do. I guess that maybe that's just a play on the mischievousness of a cat, but like never explicitly stated like, okay, I'm just taking you to these gates so you can close them. Never explicitly stated like, I'm making you the keystone. It really acted antagonistical for pretty much most of the movie until the twist, until the air quotes twist where it's like, oh, Sota's actually now the new keystone because I swapped places with him, and I want to continue living with Suzume. And I don't know, it was kind of a weak thing to me. I was just like, I mean, I get it from a plot point, and again, Daijin serves the same purpose as Sota for Suzume, which is just a character to sort of start the plot and then help progress the main character throughout the plot. But I guess Daijin was fine, and it was cute. Sa Daijin came out of nowhere though, just sort of came out of nowhere, like, hey, yeah, I'm the second keystone. And it was really unclear to me, like in that particular scene where it did show up, if it was the one that sort of accelerated Tamaki's emotions in that moment when they had that argument, and she let her know, like,
Yeah, I
you
didn't
pretty much taking my
see
life from me.
why that
Hmm.
happened. I didn't see any
Like,
reason for Sadaijin to have that effect on people.
or to even show up in that location to begin with. Nothing to establish that. At least with Daijin, it was established, that she picked him up. She's the one who fed him. There was a link, a bond created there, and then that's why they sort of had their adventure. Wasai Daijin just came out of nowhere.
Well, he's the other keystone.
Yeah, but like I guess it broke in Tokyo, right? That's what happened. Like
Yeah, it showed
Sadaijin.
up at the grandpa's bed.
No, that was just regular Daijin, was it not?
No,
Or what?
it was a black
Oh,
cat.
that was the black. Interesting. But I guess I thought that was Daijin because like it was the same size as regular Daijin.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a shadow cast. Maybe it was Daijin. I'd have to look at it at a subsequent viewing, but I guess that makes a little more sense for why it just sort of popped up and like. But see, I felt like that was Daijin again because like after Suzume was like I hate you and obviously Daijin became weak and was like oh no she hates me I thought he showed up there because obviously they were showing like he wants to continue following Suzume to help her and be friends with her.
I think that took
in this
place
journey.
after. Like he became weak after when they got to the main gate under Tokyo.
Yeah, but that
Sadaijin
was
showed up before that at the grandfather's window.
No, we got that mixed because we didn't meet the grandfather until after she had used soda to seal that gate or to become the new keystone. Remember, because that's when she was all beat up and stuff, and she went to the hospital, and she was asking him like, "How do I get back into the ever after to get Sota?" And that was the first time we met that character. And then later, as he's sitting there, after that conversation, that's when either Daijin or Sadaijin pops up in the window, and they're like, because he explicitly mentions like, oh, so you're interested in the path of that girl. Remember? That was the order of that event. That's what confused me. That's why it's confusing. Like, sort of why Sadaijin popped up and all of that, and especially the fluctuation of emotion for Tamaki. I feel like it was just, if I can be honest, a cheap way to sort of have them
that
sort of
kind of
hash
came
that
out
out.
of nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, Daijin, technically his full name is Udaijin, or has a U in the front, might be devoiced to U, but a Daijin or Udaijin is the minister of the right, and he's the deputy to Sadaijin, the minister of the left. So that I was trying to figure out what Daijin meant when I was during the movie. Like, he looks like a Daijin. It's like, well, if judging by the word, it's just some sort of upper level person.
Yeah,
so it makes sense. He's a minister. Or
is this Buddhism, or is this another, or is this?
no, it's just government positions in
Gotcha.
early. I don't know what period it's called, but yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
Udaijin does technically fall under Sadaijin. It's probably why he came to get his ass.
That does make sense. How he's just sort of manhandled him. It's just like you little shit. Like, you're gonna attack me, and he's just sitting there licking him. Like, calm yourself. I did find it pretty cool. I won't call it Ghibli-esque, obviously, but like at the end, we had like a Ghibli-esque like sort of final battle with this giant, with the giant Sadaijin versus the worm, and obviously Sadaijin was getting the work, but I guess to go back to your point of more magic and more supernatural and mysticism, like we had an actual like monster battle in this one. But again, I think that just plays well into the adventure aspect of this movie, the journey adventure aspect. But yeah,
I've got like three more points. One of them is this isn't the same theme or same climax part of all three movies, where the MC partner disappears. MC breaks barriers to get them back somehow. Power of love, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of his movies sort of have that. Well, not all. Let me not say all, because the stuff before this, I guess, current trilogy is not necessarily the same. Like Child, what's it called? Distant Voices, and I forget all the names.
Voices of a Distant Star.
Yeah, Voices of a Distant Star and Garden of Words and all of those different ones. But is that Shinkai? Yeah, that is Shinkai.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, no need to mess with a good plot structure if it works.
I mean, you could do something slightly different. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I
Like
you
as
know
soon as
I
you know he's going to be turned into the Keystone, you know she's going to come back somehow and get him out.
but
Like
at the very least, I think these three different interpretations of the same plot beats, like it just shows you how well you can take something that exists and then sort of make it its own thing. I mean, they're still distinct. I feel like each movie, even with the same plot structure, or at least at the core of it, are very distinct from one another. I came out of that movie, feeling like, man, this was a great, like, sort of almost even action adventure to a degree. Like action, not as much, but just somewhat. But it felt distinctly different from Your Name and definitely Weathering with You. Whereas those two felt a little more in sync for me, if that makes sense. Like they were a lot more similar than this one was. It definitely felt a lot more distinct. But I see what your point is. I've seen that complaint thrown for this movie. Not necessarily a complaint, but observation that definitely
yeah,
utilizing the same three
yeah,
tiered
like
structure.
I didn't mind it at all. Like it's a good movie, good story. But like
Yeah.
when you look at it in retrospect, you see, oh, it's the same thing. But I don't know. These last 2 points, they don't mean anything. They're just some weird stuff. The sitting and stepping on the chair. Some people are going
I
to be
was
like, God, I wish that was me.
I was waiting for that. 100% was I was just waiting for that to like
And
happen.
your comment at the beginning of the movie is like, I held off on saying it because like that's
I
the
I
POV of the
mean,
camera was like,
yeah.
it could be kind of weird, man.
I'm just saying. Okay, so this is a little more, this is personal. But my wife, right, like I'll watch some anime with her and I specifically curate some of the stuff I watch, to make sure it's something she'd actually sort of vibe with. But she has often made the claim that why is it that when I always come in here and you're watching anime, it just sounds like a bunch of women moaning? Like, are you just watching porn? And I tell her no, it's just, grunts and groans and expressions, and then sometimes I'll try to counter back with, well, I mean, women are making similar noises in other content that are not anime, and they do. But
You just had to
that
say it.
that opening scene, I mean, I did. It had to be. I felt like an inaudible. I didn't look at the other people that were in the audience with us, but I just felt like
You
this
immediately
general,
thought lewd.
because it was,
No,
man.
not. Sounds like that doesn't automatic. They should automatically mean lewd.
Yes, yes, they should. Yes, they
No,
should. Look,
that
look,
was
look.
she was 4.
First of all, we didn't know she was 4 because when the thing just like came up, like you just heard like feet walking. So I couldn't tell if that
I
was
mean,
like, I
you
couldn't
could
tell
tell
the
the camera
age.
POV is pretty low. The grass is pretty
Look,
high.
I'm not paying that much attention. All I'm hearing is, and I'm not going to repeat that moan, but it just sounded like a bunch of moaning, and I had no, at least in my, because again, right. I went into this movie with zero expectations. I hadn't watched any trailers. I guess I had watched the trailer like a long time ago when they sort of first were talking about the movie, but I didn't know, what the angle was. I didn't know like this was based off of her trauma and that there'd be backstory related to when she was a young girl. I just came in, and I also came in late, so I got in there.
Well, you did
The
not
movie's
come
just
in
now
late.
started. I did come in late.
We're
Well,
still watching the pre-roll stuff.
sure. I mean, the theater pre roll. That's what I caught. I didn't catch the trailers, which I was gonna ask you, and I'll ask you later if they advertise anything neat or something we didn't know about. But
Same stuff.
same stuff. Okay. But seriously, man, I had no idea that was a child until they showed me it was a child, and even then, like, obviously that's not a child voicing that character.
I think
So
it is.
I don't. That did not sound like a child to me. That sounded like a person who
They do have
who
separate.
voices children.
They do have separate credits for young versus the main character.
Sure, but
So it's
that's
possible.
that's probably an adult. That did not sound like a child at all. 100%. Like, sure, they do a good presentation of a child, but that sounded like an adult, especially with the sounds of what are supposed to be trekking, a young child trekking through, a harsh post earthquake snow covered land or whatever. You were thinking it, I was thinking. I just said it out loud because I was like, "What is this? What are we listening to right now?" I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable, but I get it. It's fine. You want an example of a child voice actor? I just recently watched Heart and Yumi. What's it called in Japanese? Omaewa Umaso. With my wife recently. And there's a character in there called Umaso. The joke is that it's a bunch of dinosaurs as a child. It's based off a children's book. The main character calls Umaso yummy because that's sort of a translation for Umaso, or delicious or whatever. Anyway, that little baby Ankylosaurus, that is a child actor. That kid was 8 or 9 when they did that.
Well, I just looked it up, and it actually is a child. The voice actor.
They knew better. They knew better when they did.
No.
I challenge anybody
to
go, when it comes out fully, when you can stream it or you can buy the Blu-ray or whatever. I challenge anybody to listen to that and not think, what the hell am I listening to? Prior to even with the child like on screen, it's just the sound. And you cannot tell me that it's just not.
You're getting canceled after this episode.
We're not gonna get.
Oh,
it's not like I'm not gonna get canceled. I'm just saying the sound was awkward, man. It was awkward. That's all I'm saying. I've heard child treks through rough conditions before in Japanese media. It wasn't that intense, and maybe it's because I was watching it in a theater rather than at home on the cheap TV speakers or my headphones or whatever. It just sounded weird. I wasn't excited. That's definitely not the word. I was uncomfortable. I was like, is anybody else uncomfortable listening to this? And you cannot tell me. You cannot tell me you didn't feel a certain type of way. Even you didn't know that it was
no.
Okay, sure. Let me be the bad guy for that then. But I promise you, somebody else in that theater thought that sounded weird, and it wasn't just me.
Man,
if I had
y'all are weird.
I'm just saying. But you said that's your last point.
I have one more.
Oh, okay. But, sorry. Go ahead then.
There was a McDonald's ad.
Was there really?
Yes. Well, not in the movie, but a separate ad.
Oh, okay.
The mom had more screen time in the ad than the movie. I don't think she showed up in the movie at all.
So they had a McDonald's ad in Japan.
Yes.
That featured the deceased mom.
Yes.
It's kind of messed up, but that's a perfect allegory to how companies don't care about your trauma.
I mean, it was released a while ago, so you didn't know.
I guess that's true, but that's interesting. Yeah, she only really showed up voiced in one particular scene, and I think that's after Suzume sets Sota as the new Keystone, and then they, obviously she falls into that sewer underneath Tokyo. And she has to flashback to when her mom is building that chair. I think that's the only time she's voiced in the movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. But also, so since that's your last point, I'm gonna touch on a few things. Not too much though. Since we're talking about the mom and stuff, I remember at the beginning of the movie, and I don't know if you caught this too. She said Sota has a familiar air to him, right? And so I was thinking that was gonna be some type of way that, at some point in the movie, like there's some connection between them outside of the adventure that they go on throughout the movie.
Yeah, I was thinking her mom was also a closer or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And no, that never happens. Nope. The only thing I can really think of, and there's only two things that I felt with that. One, obviously at the end there's the twist of the fact that the person that approaches Suzume when she first goes into the ever after when she's young is not her mother, but is actually her from the future. Which, at first I had some feelings about it, then I thought about it and was like, this makes sense because they already established that the ever after is like the meeting point of all time. Obviously it's the afterlife. And so it makes sense that this loop would continue to happen at this point in this specific way because it's the convergence of time. And so obviously the young Suzume sees that outline of Sota next to Suzume at the end, and so maybe that's where that initial like familiarity comes from. But then I also
he didn't show up before.
Yeah. Well, but then her memory was hazy because obviously she was like very young at that point. I mean, she was a young child at that point, so it sort of makes sense. But the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting was when you look at the mom, and I don't know if you remember exactly what the mom looks like, but visually she looks very similar to Solta. I thought that for a second. I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
that in the design, but they looked similar to me. At least like the hair and some of
I
the
can see
facial
like
structure.
the drawing or character art is similar, but I don't think in universe that would be
Well,
related.
sure, but I don't know. I was trying to find like a reason why that what might be. I don't I don't know. That was another one of those unexplored things.
Like
I,
still no reason to care about him. I mean, I liked
Mhm.
him, but like they didn't give me any reason to for her to like him.
Yeah. Again, I mean, he's a plot uh forwarder. Let's just say plot forwarder. Him and Daijin. But yeah, all the side characters were really solid. I was rooting for the guy that worked with Tamaki, but there was no follow through for him, unfortunately. So he will forever remain in the friend zone, I guess. Poor him. Um, I think Shinkai has a thing for hot milfs. I don't know, or I guess hot older women. I don't know. Wasn't there like haven't all of them had like an attractive like older woman like in their 30s to 40s that
Mm,
I might
I,
be off
I don't know.
cuff there.
I don't remember anyone in the second one.
But the first one,
Uh,
maybe not.
yes, there was the office waiter lady in the first one. Not office lady, the restaurant waitress.
I'm just saying he's had distinct like with the protagonist,
He's
especially
Garden of
like
Words,
Suzume.
obviously.
Oh, what was that?
Garden of Words.
Oh, oh yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just miss. I feel like his characters designs are like really grounded because like obviously you have your attractive protagonist, but then you also have like regular ordinary people. Not necessarily just super like stylized to be just eye candy, but like I feel like there's been a particular archetype with like maybe the older mother or guidance figure or something like that. But I probably am just off base. But yeah, I liked all the characters in this movie. I like the motivations of the characters. There is something I wanted to talk about, and I don't necessarily remember. There was something that stuck out to me in this movie. This may be a cat. This may be trying to grasp at something. You think there was any sort of connective tissue to your name with Suzume's sort of choice of the red string, making an allusion to the red string of fate? I
Well,
guess.
that's not really a your name thing. That's more of
Oh,
a
I know this.
the
That's a
whole red
cultural
string of
thing.
fate thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, obviously, continue to play on those similar themes that he's using for these movies. Because I don't remember that in Weathering with You, but I
No,
know that was a central thing in Your Name,
I don't think it played a big
or
symbol
maybe just
in
like
this
a
movie.
cameo, maybe just
Eh,
slight. It again, grasping, but I did notice like her little red accessories, her little red strings and stuff, noticeable to me. Um, I don't know. I think you covered the main beats. I feel like there was something else I want to talk about, but it's probably not important if I can't remember it anymore. Um, but
where
I
would you
would
rate it?
definitely. What do I rate it? See, honestly, I'd give it an. I mean, I don't want to be one of those types of people. It's not a perfect movie, so I'd give it a 9 or an 8.5. Right? I think there's some plot beats that are a little undercooked. I think some of the character motivations, don't really work within the span of 2 hours because they're not allowed to be fleshed out. But I think as a whole, and if you look at it, if you inspect it a little bit, like this is a very well done movie. Sound direction, art direction, animation, story, character writing. It's really a 9 to a 9.5. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was better than Your Name and Weathering with You, if I can be honest. But that may be more my sensibilities to what type of content I like rather than, a sort of objective or analytical look at those two movies. I don't know what your rating would be.
Well, I gave Your Name a 10 when I first watched it,
Interesting.
but I haven't watched it recently, so it may go down in score, but I would give this one a 9.5
9.5. Yeah, I
because I give it a few points off for no reason to like the Ikemen, Mr. Ikemen-san, and music just doesn't really, it's not memorable, and I don't think when compared to the first book, I don't think anything can replicate that first big reveal of the climax of Your Name. Like, I think that's also why he didn't replicate it, because that's would be very difficult to replicate.
Yeah, but I don't think he has to in this movie. I think the movie does a great job. I guess one thing we didn't highlight, but I sort of talked about now that you brought that up, is like Suzume is a fantastic like female lead protagonist. Like probably one of the best we've seen in the medium, if I can be honest. Like just her motivations, her charisma, her personality. She's not too like I know everything and I have the ultimate power, but she's also not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I can't think of all the words I want to say, but I think she's a fantastic, strong, well-written character, like very believable, very root, you want to root for her, I think you can understand a lot of her motivations and aspects outside of, sort of the maybe shoehorned in romance with the Ikemen, but and even that to a degree, again, I can see how that's written in. So yeah, I think it's definitely a 9.5. If we're really taking off 5 points for music, then it's a 9.7 because we got Maria Takeuchi, man. So
I mean, those were existing
thanks.
songs, though.
Sure, but
That's easy, too easy.
yeah, it's an easy point too. It's an easy point too. Thank you, based Serizawa. I like the subtle humor with that scene as well because there's not that much like I mean, there's subtle humor throughout the movie, but his bits were pretty funny with his car and stuff, and obviously, him appearing to be a pimp, not a pimp. What's the word? Playboy. I thought that was
A
hilarious.
lone shark.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I think that's a good sort of overview of how we're feeling on that movie. Definitely a rewatch. Definitely a purchase. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely
I would.
rewatch.
I would love to see more. I think one thing, like we sort of touched on throughout the whole thing, is I would like to see more of this world and this characters, and definitely we won't see that ever, which is kind of sad, unless again, like maybe they do a prequel series in manga or light novel form. But I would love to see just more of the world. But I think unlike something like Tales of Abyss, which I know that's a random just why you bringing Tales of Abyss up, but like with that ending, it was just so open. At the end, I won't spoil that game, but it's one of the ones I always think of like, what is this? You're gonna give me more, right? And then you never get more. With this one, I think it had a pretty definitive ending. And I'm okay with that. Like, obviously the Iki Man and the young lady meet up again at the end, and I guess they have their future or whatever, blah blah blah. But it ends
He's like
definitively.
21 or 22.
And she's 16.
Yeah.
Just that is 5 years, isn't it? Wait a minute. I mean, I have like a 4 year difference between me and my wife. That's not too bad. I mean, wait till she's 18. But that's a cultural thing. That's not for me to discuss. Oh, I know we're wrapping up, but how did you feel about I guess the twist at the end, real quick before we end this? Was
Twist.
like, I guess it's air quotes twist, the fact that it wasn't her mother who presented her with the chair, but it was her who presented herself with the chair.
That's not really a twist.
It's kind of a twist. I
Well,
mean,
they intentionally
you were
didn't reveal at the beginning, and we saw it when she looked back at the hill, like, oh, she's got to do the thing.
I mean, it's a twist in the sense that, I mean, you think it's her mother. Like, I wasn't actually expecting her to pick up the like when I heard like Sota say like, oh, there's somebody in the distance, I thought what was going to happen was like she was going to see her mother or something, and there was going to be some sort of like, like goodbye type moment, right? Like, everything was going to sort of like unravel itself. Like that would be the moment, like, she sort of let goes of sort of that trauma, or she starts to recover from the trauma. But no, it was herself, the small version of herself. And like, obviously she brings the chair, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Maybe it was not anything worth talking about, but it definitely made me think of, actually that might be spoilers. So I'll just keep that to myself. I was gonna mention another series that does that exact same thing, which is hilarious, but I'll keep that to myself. Anyways, good movie. Go watch it. But yeah, that is Super Mario Brothers and Suzume. I think if you've listened to this, whether in the present or the past, and you haven't watched either, I think you should watch both. Depending on what you like. Definitely Suzume gets high recommendation. Mario also gets at least. I think you should watch it at least once, right? You don't necessarily have to watch it, but I think it deserves at least one watch. But yeah, I think that will do it. Next podcast, I will continue to push off watching Arpeggio because that's just the in joke now. I'll never actually finish watching that series. I'm still sort of where I was the last time we discussed it personally. But we'll get there. So yeah, closing remarks before we end this.
The movie was good enough that the skewed bottom and cut off corners did not bother me at all. And
I didn't even notice.
That's saying a lot for me. Usually that would bother me to like no end, but then during watching it, just didn't notice at all. I took a photo.
Or
I can actually I can send that to you to put in.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'll put that in the
There's
video.
a photo of the credits.
So it was that was through the entire thing.
Yes.
I never noticed it until the end when the subtitles became warped. So either the movie was really good or they severely underutilized the bottom right half of the screen because I never noticed that until the end. Like, were subtitles ever warping in the movie until the end?
They were. I mean, it was like that from the start, even during the pre-rolls. But
I didn't. That's crazy. I didn't notice that at all. Well,
I guess this photo won't really show the I don't know, the severity of it, because
when you
the credits it's the whole black screen. You can see the text is definitely skewed, but you can't really tell how much it was cut off.
Tell you what, put it in Photoshop and then just like draw an outline of like what it is, and then that way that'll highlight exactly how I guess little warped it was. That's crazy. I wonder how their role got warped like that. That's kind of interesting.
Well, here I put it in.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, anyways, well, alrighty. Until next time, Aniplex. Wait, is Aniplex? Aniplex has nothing to do with this.
This Crunchyroll.
Awesome. Aniplex sucks. Until next time.